Hi, I'm Dylan. Just crossed the big 2-0, and for the first time, I've got a spot to call my own, sort of. My parents handed me the keys to this house as an 18th birthday present, but let's just say it was more of a project than a palace. A real handyman special, if you catch my drift. For the past couple of years, I've poured every spare cent and second into patching it up, bit by bit. The floors still creak under my steps, the walls could use a better coat of paint, and the backyard? It's practically a wilderness preserve. But it's mine, and I'm darn proud of that. The place is tucked at the end of a peaceful cul-de-sac in a classic small-town American neighborhood. You've seen the kind: tidy lawns, white picket fences, folks strolling with their dogs as the sun dips low. It's the sort of community where people wave from their front steps and know each other by name. Me? I hadn't met a soul. I'd been so caught up in hammering, sanding, and scrubbing that I never made time to introduce myself. Not that I meant to come off as standoffish, I was just swamped. I've never owned a car, and I'm still rolling without one. My trusty ride since I was 16 has been a beat-up, matte black mountain bike that's seen its share of adventures. By now, I could probably tinker with it blindfolded. That's exactly what I was up to that day, crouched in the driveway, wrestling with a finicky rear wheel and a chain that wouldn't behave. The sun was blazing, and sweat kept trickling from my brow, splattering onto the pavement. I was so focused I didn't even notice her approach. "Looks like you're in deep," a woman's voice chimed in. I glanced up, caught off guard. There she was, standing on the sidewalk in front of my house, wearing a breezy summer dress and sunglasses that hid her eyes. Her wavy brown hair cascaded just past her shoulders. I couldn't pin down her age, but she was definitely older than me, not in her 20s. She had this serene radiance, poised and confident, with a kind of natural beauty that made you do a double take. I smeared the grease from my hands onto my shorts and flashed a friendly grin. "Yeah, this chain's giving me a hard time today," I replied. She let out a soft chuckle. "If I were a bit younger, I might just beg for a spin on that bike." I paused for a heartbeat. Was she messing with me? Hard to tell. I looked up again, and there it was, a sly, knowing smirk, like she was fully aware of the spark she'd just ignited. I laughed and tossed back, "What's stopping you from asking now?" She held my gaze for a moment, as if sizing up whether to keep the banter going. Then she gave a quiet laugh, shook her head, and started walking away. "Have fun with that ride, neighbor," she called over her shoulder. I stayed there, still hunched over my bike, watching her vanish around the corner. I had no clue who she was. Maybe I'd glimpsed her before, too distracted to register it. I tried to get back to fixing the chain, acting like I was focused, but my mind kept drifting after her. Something about her lingered, her easy assurance, the effortless way she teased. It wasn't just her appearance, though she was striking. It was her presence, like she knew exactly who she was and owned it. That night, I plopped down on my front porch with a chilled soda, watching the sun melt behind the rooftops. A couple ambled by with their dog, and some kids were shooting baskets a few houses down, typical neighborhood scenes. But my eyes kept flicking to the street corner, half hoping she'd stroll by again. No such luck. I leaned back on the porch swing and let out a soft chuckle to myself. Maybe this little town wasn't going to be as sleepy as I'd figured. The next few days passed in a blur of routine. I patched up a wall in the bathroom, sorted out a flickering kitchen light, and battled an unruly tangle of weeds that was masquerading as a lawn. No sign of her, not even a glimpse. I started to wonder if she'd just been passing through, a one-off encounter. But try as I might, I couldn't shake her from my thoughts. Then Friday morning hit around 9 a.m. I just hopped out of the shower, hair still wet, when a gentle knock came at the front door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I threw on a t-shirt, hustled over, and wiped my hands dry on the way. When I swung the door open, there she was. This time, she was in light jeans and a loose, white blouse, clutching a small white box. Her sunglasses sat perched on her head, revealing warm hazel eyes. For a second, a strange, fluttery nerves hit me, and I couldn't quite place why. "Hey," she said, her smile as calm as ever. "Hope I'm not barging in on anything." "Nah, you're good," I said, stepping aside to give her space. "Something I can help with?" She held out the box. Just a little housewarming gift. Donuts from a bakery a couple blocks over. Figured you haven't had much chance to explore the area yet. I looked at the box, then back at her, totally thrown. Wow, that's really kind of you. Thanks. I'm Rebecca, she said. But everyone just calls me Becky. I took the box, still grinning. Great to meet you, Becky. I'm Dylan. And yeah, you nailed it. I've barely stepped off this lot since I moved in. She laughed. I noticed. I've spotted you out here with a toolbox more than once. That broke the tension. I gestured toward the small kitchen just inside. Fancy a coffee? I asked. The place is a bit rough around the edges, but it's got sturdy walls and the pipes actually cooperate now. She gave another gentle laugh. Sure, I'd love one. We settled at my rickety kitchen table, nothing fancy, just a couple of mismatched chairs and a worn-out tabletop with a history. I poured her a mug of coffee and we cracked open the donut box together. Chatting with her felt oddly effortless, like we'd been acquaintances for ages. She mentioned she lived 4 houses down in the blue place with the massive oak out front. Said she'd been there going on 15 years. Her 2 kids, both in their early 20s, were off at college now. I raised them solo, she said softly, sipping her coffee. Their dad bailed years back. We tied the knot too young, and when things got rough, he just up and left. I nodded, unsure how to reply at first. That sounds tough. Must have been a lot to handle, I said. It was, she said, her tone steady, not bitter, just strong. But it forged me. I had to figure out how to keep everything together on my own. And somehow I managed. I opened up a bit in return, told her how I started picking up odd jobs at 16, stashing every dime I earned, how I gave college a shot but had to bail when the bills piled too high, and how I'd been funneling all I had into fixing this house. One paycheck at a time. Honestly, I said, glancing around, it's nowhere near perfect, but I kind of dig the grind. She gave me a real smile, warm and brimming with respect. You've got every reason to be proud. Most guys your age wouldn't have the guts or the drive to pull off what you're doing. I shrugged, a bit sheepish but genuinely touched by her words. What hit me most was how natural it felt to talk with her. Despite the years between us, nothing about it felt awkward or strained. It just clicked. After nearly an hour, she checked the time and got up slowly. I should probably get going before I overstay my welcome, she said with a grin. Trust me, it's been great, I said, meaning it. And thanks again for the donuts. She headed for the door, then paused and glanced back with a playful smirk. Oh, and I wasn't kidding the other day. I raised an eyebrow. About the bike ride? She chuckled, her voice carrying that same teasing lilt. About wishing I was a tad younger. I froze again, a flush creeping up my neck. She gave a light-hearted shake of her head, smiled, and slipped outside. I shut the door behind her, pressed my forehead against it, and let out a quiet laugh. Something told me this wasn't the last I'd see of her. The next few days were calm, but I couldn't shake this odd, restless itch. I threw myself into house chores. There was always something to fix. The bathroom door squeaked like crazy, a gutter had come loose in the last storm, and one living room switch was maddeningly temperamental. I had a laundry list of tasks, and I tackled them one by one. Still, every time I stepped outside, my eyes drifted down the street without me meaning to. I wasn't sure what I was waiting for, maybe just hoping she'd wander by again. Wednesday came, warm and airy, the kind of day that begs you to work outdoors and soak up the sun. I'd been at it since dawn, grappling with a wobbly board on the front steps. Sweat dripped onto the wood as I knelt there, hammer in hand, nails strewn about. Then I heard it, those light, familiar steps on the sidewalk. My hammer froze mid-swing. I looked up and there was Rebecca. She was in snug light blue jeans and a beige sweater, sleeves rolled up casually to her elbows. A delicate silver necklace sat at her collarbone. Her brown hair was pulled back loosely, grazing her shoulders as she moved. Hey, Mr. Fix-It, she called with a cheeky grin, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. At it again, huh? I stood, brushing my hands on my jeans. Yeah, I'm basically the block's unofficial handyman now. She laughed softly and stepped closer, pausing at the base of my porch. You're doing awesome. This place looks better every time I pass by. Still a long way to go, I said, nodding toward the uneven steps. Guess I'm a bit of a project myself. She tilted her head, her eyes lingering on mine a moment longer than usual. Who isn't, she said, her voice soft and warm. There was a brief silence, not awkward, but electric, like we were both feeling out the next move. I hate to bother you, she said, her tone hesitating as she nibbled her lip. But my kitchen faucet's been dripping like crazy for weeks. I tried fiddling with it, but no dice. I grinned, no hesitation. I can check it out if you'd like. Her face brightened. You do that? Absolutely, I said. Show me the way. I gathered my tools, dusted off my hands, and trailed Becky down the sidewalk to her place, the blue house with the towering oak tree she'd mentioned before. It had a subtle allure, the kind of home that bore the marks of a life well lived. The paint was a touch weathered, the porch showed years of use, but vibrant flowers lined the path, giving it a cozy, heartfelt warmth. Stepping into her kitchen, I noticed cream-colored cabinets and a sturdy, vintage farmhouse sink that seemed as old as the house itself. The walls were a gallery of family memories, snapshots of chubby-cheeked babies, proud graduation moments, and those cringeworthy school photos everyone hides somewhere. It was clear this was a home woven with love and stories. I crouched by the sink, grappling with a tricky pipe using my wrench, while Becky leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching with a quiet curiosity. You know, she said after a pause, I'm impressed by how much effort you put in. Most guys your age wouldn't even know which end of a wrench to hold. I gave the valve a final twist and let out a laugh. When you're scraping by and everything you've got is falling apart, you either figure it out quick or you're sunk. Her laugh was warm and full, a sound that seemed to lift the whole room. You're not like the others, she said, her gaze steady on me. I stood and she passed me a worn towel. I scrubbed the sweat and grime from my hands. All done, I said. That leak should be history. She tested the faucet, watching the steady stream with a grin. When she turned back, she was a step closer, not crowding me, but near enough that I caught a whiff of her perfume, something sweet and floral with a hint of vanilla. A silent moment hung between us, not uneasy, but heavy with something unsaid. You didn't have to help, she said softly. But I'm grateful. No big deal, I replied. She paused for a breath, then gently placed her hand on my arm. It was fleeting, barely a touch, but it sent a jolt through me, sharp and alive. I owe you one, she said, drawing her hand back. How about I treat you to dinner? I blinked, caught off guard. You don't need to do that. She tilted her head, her smile effortless. It's just a meal, Dylan. Before I could overthink it, I was nodding. All right, sounds good. That Friday, we met at a quaint Italian spot a short drive from our neighborhood. The place had a warm glow with soft lighting, red and white checkered tablecloths, and vintage photos of Italy dotting the walls. We started off with light chatter, home improvement mishaps, silly blunders, favorite films, the great pizza topping debate, and tales of DIY disasters. But as the evening unfolded, our conversation dipped into deeper waters. Becky opened up about raising her kids alone, about the nights she sobbed and the mornings she dragged herself up because there was no alternative. It's strange, she said quietly, twirling her wine glass. You spend years getting your kids ready to leave, but when they're gone, you realize you're the one who wasn't prepared. I listened, truly absorbed, struck by how candid she was with me. I shared my own story in return, how college became a financial dead end, how I juggled multiple gigs to afford supplies for the house, and how I was just patching things together without a real roadmap. I'm just taking it one fix at a time, hoping it all falls into place, I admitted. You've done more than most, she said gently. You should be proud of yourself. We lingered there for hours. When we finally stepped outside, the streetlights cast a golden haze, stretching shadows across the pavement. The night was crisp but pleasant. Becky walked beside me as we meandered back toward our corner of the world. At the spot where her house peeked through the trees, she paused. Thanks, Dylan, she whispered. Tonight was really special. Same here, I said, meaning every word. Her fingers brushed my arm again, light as a breeze. Good night, she said softly. I smiled, that I flutter stirring again. Night, Becky. She slipped into her house and I stood there, rooted to the spot. The street was hushed, save for the faint hum of crickets. My heart was racing and I didn't know why, but I felt it deep down. Something between us had changed. I wandered home under the faint glow of the streetlights, my mind buzzing with emotions I couldn't quite pin down. The next morning hit differently. I woke up, eyes fixed on the ceiling fan spinning lazily above, and all I could think of was her Becky. Her smile, the warmth of her touch on my arm, the softness in her voice as she said goodnight. I sat up, scrubbing my face, trying to push it aside, but it was no use. I wasn't some starry-eyed kid, but this feeling was new, different. The age difference was obvious, but it didn't matter to me. I was into her. Plain and simple. Over the next week, Becky popped up more often, little moments that started to stack up. She'd wave from across the street while pruning her bushes. One afternoon, she caught me lugging grocery bags and offered to help carry them. One morning, she showed up with fresh muffins, just because. Another day, she knocked on my door, that familiar playful glint in her eye. "I'm hopeless against this pasta sauce jar," she said, holding it up. "Can you rescue dinner?" "Easy," I said, grinning. I followed her back to her place, twisted the lid off with a quick flick, and we both cracked up. I hung around longer than necessary, and she didn't seem eager for me to go. As days blurred into evenings, something between us began to take root. I'd find excuses to swing by her house. She'd come up with just as many reasons to invite me in. Soon, we were spending entire nights together, cooking dinner at her place and eating on her back porch under twinkling string lights, talking about everything from dreams to nonsense. Sometimes she'd laugh and rest her hand on my knee. Other times, I'd brush a stray lock of her hair behind her ear and she'd meet my gaze with those warm, knowing eyes. One evening stands out above the rest. I'd invited her to my place and whipped up spaghetti, my surefire impressor dish. We ate outside at my little patio table, the full moon casting a soft glow. As the night grew late, our words tapered off and the air turned still. She looked at me and murmured, "You make me feel alive again, Dylan." I can't even put it into words. My throat tightened because, honestly, I felt it too. I'd gone out with girls my age before, but this was different, deeper, softer, real. When she leaned in and kissed me, it wasn't hurried or clumsy. It was tender, deliberate, brimming with feeling. Her lips were warm, her hands gently framing my face. When we pulled apart, our eyes locked, and we both knew what we were stepping into. The risks, the whispers, the sidelong glances if anyone found out. But right then, none of it mattered. From that point, our evenings shifted. I'd pedal over after sunset, and she'd leave the porch light on, a signal she was waiting. Some nights, we'd snuggle on her couch, watching classic movies, her head on my shoulder, my arm around her. Others, we'd sway barefoot in her living room, soft tunes wrapping around us. And some nights, we let passion sweep us up. I'll keep it vague, but it was always mutual, always respectful, and never felt wrong. It was like two people, both a little adrift, finally finding solace in each other. One night, as she lay with her head on my chest, she shared something raw. "When I was young," she whispered, "I thought I had it all mapped out. Marriage, kids, the perfect house with a porch swing." Her fingers traced idle patterns on my arm. But life threw curveballs. My husband left before I ever truly understood love. I spent 20 years raising my boys, pulling double shifts, always putting myself last, forgetting I was more than a mom. I never really lived, Dylan. I missed out on my youth. I held her closer and murmured, "Then let me give you that, even if it's just for now." I meant it with every fiber of my being. We started venturing out together, keeping it discreet, away from prying eyes. I took her to the city for late-night dinners, intimate concerts, poetry readings at cozy coffee shops, even a nightclub or two. I showed her my world, the rhythm of the life I knew. At first, She was hesitant. The crowds were noisy, the vibe young and frenetic. But bit by bit, I saw her loosen up, laughing freely, dancing like she didn't care who was watching. One night, under pulsing neon lights, she spun in my arms, her hair catching the blue glow. "This is wild," she called over the music, breathless. "I haven't done this in 2 decades." I grinned, pulling her close. "Tonight's all for you." We stayed out until dawn, wandering empty streets hand in hand, spilling our hopes, fears, and regrets. When we reached my bike, parked on the sidewalk, she wrapped her arms around me, her head against my chest. "I feel alive again," she whispered, and I did too. Pedaling home that morning, the cool breeze against my skin, I knew I was caught up in something extraordinary, something I never saw coming. Not here, not with her, not like this. But every time I walked up her path and saw her on the porch, that gentle smile on her face, I knew there was nowhere else I'd rather be. Weeks stretched into months, and our secret became a quiet refuge. We never labeled it. It wasn't a fling, not a cookie-cutter romance, not even just friendship. It was ours, a private world only we understood. I spent most nights at her place after work. Some evenings, we'd cook together in her kitchen, playfully arguing over whether garlic bread should be soft or crunchy. Others, we'd sit on her porch swing, sipping wine as the sky shifted from amber to indigo. The silence between us was never heavy. Just being near her was enough. Sometimes, Becky would glance nervously down the street when someone passed by. "Think anyone's onto us?" she asked one night, her voice barely audible. "Maybe," I said honestly. "But does it really matter?" She leaned into me, exhaling softly. "No. I stopped worrying about other people's opinions ages ago. In public, we played it cool. No hands held, no longing looks. But behind closed doors, we were real, unguarded, even if it didn't fit the mold. We never planned for tomorrow or mapped out where this was headed. Maybe that's why it felt so perfect. We lived it moment by moment. One night, curled up under a blanket on her couch, the flicker of candlelight painting the walls, she said something I'll always carry. "This is the happiest I've been in years, Dylan." I squeezed her hand gently. "Same here," I said. In the dim light, I felt her eyes on me. "I know this won't last forever," she whispered. "You'll find someone your age, settle down, build a family, live the life you're supposed to." Her words stung more than I expected. I stayed quiet. She shifted, her voice softer still. "Just promise me one thing, okay? Remember me as the person who made you smile while you were still finding your way, not just the older woman down the street." I turned to her, my fingers brushing her cheek. "I promise," I said. We didn't say much after that. We just held each other, both sensing this chapter was quietly drawing to a close. When fall arrived, things changed. Our time together dwindled. Becky threw herself into volunteer work and started visiting her sons more. I scored a full-time gig with a local construction crew, spending my days on job sites. By evening, I was too wiped to do much more than crash. We both felt the gap widening, but we didn't fight it. That was the beauty of us, we never held on too tightly. It was about being there fully while it lasted. The last time we were more than neighbors was simple, understated, perfect. I stopped by to return a book she'd lent me weeks before. She invited me in, and we sat on her porch swing one last time. No theatrics, no tears, just a shared understanding. "You gave me something I thought was gone," she said, her voice steady. "You brought back my youth." I smiled. "And you gave me something too, Becky. You taught me what it means to really care for someone." We hugged, long, tight, neither of us rushing to let go. When we parted, she leaned in and kissed my cheek softly. "Goodbye, Dylan." "Goodbye, Becky." I walked home under a sharp autumn sky, dry leaves crunching under my boots, the air crisp and clear. At my porch, I glanced back toward her house. Her porch light glowed, same as always, and I smiled. That piece of my life was over, and I was okay with it. We stayed neighbors, cordial waves, brief chats when our paths crossed. Life marched on for us both. But that secret world we crafted, that tender, impossible love we shared, it was ours alone. No one else ever knew, and I never felt the urge to spill it. Years later, when I ride past her house on my bike, a smile creeps up without me trying. Because I remember. And I kept my promise.